One rainy evening in a small town called Rivertown, a man named Marcus was closing his small mechanic shop when he heard a strange sound outside. He wiped his hands on an old cloth and walked toward the door. The rain was falling heavily and the streets were almost empty. But there, lying on the wet ground near the corner of his shop, was a person. Marcus rushed outside immediately. The rain soaked his clothes as he knelt beside the figure. It was a young man, probably in his late 20s. His clothes were torn and dirty. Blood was running down the side of his face from a wound on his forehead. His eyes were closed and he was not moving. Marcus quickly checked if the man was breathing. He was. Marcus gently shook his shoulder. "Hey, can you hear me?" The young man's eyes slowly opened. He looked confused and scared. His lips moved, but no clear words came out. Marcus helped him sit up slowly. "Easy, easy. You are hurt. Let me help you." The young man looked around as if he did not know where he was. He touched his head and winced in pain. Who are you?" he asked weakly. "My name is Marcus. You are outside my shop. What happened to you?" The young man stared at him for a moment. Then his face became filled with fear. "I do not know." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" The young man touched his head again. I do not remember anything." Marcus studied his face carefully. "You do not remember what happened?" The young man shook his head slowly. "I do not even remember my name." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. He realized this man was not just injured. He had lost his memory. "Come on, let me take you inside. You need help." Marcus helped the young man to his feet and guided him into the shop. Inside, Marcus sat him down on an old wooden chair and brought a first aid kit. He cleaned the wound on the man's head and bandaged it carefully. The young man sat quietly, staring at the floor. "You really do not remember anything?" Marcus asked gently. The young man shook his head. "Nothing, not my name, not where I came from, nothing." Marcus sighed. "We need to take you to the hospital." The young man looked up quickly. "No, please, I do not want to go there." Marcus hesitated. "But you are hurt. You need proper care." The young man's voice became firm despite his weakness. "I just need rest, please." Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, you can stay here tonight, but tomorrow we figure out who you are." The young man nodded gratefully. "Thank you." Marcus brought him a blanket and some water. Then he locked up the shop and took the young man to his small house, which was just behind the mechanic's shop. The house was simple. It had 2 small bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and a living room with old furniture. Marcus lived alone. He had lost his wife 3 years earlier to illness, and he had no children. So the house was always quiet. Marcus showed the young man to the spare bedroom. "You can sleep here tonight. If you need anything, just call me." The young man nodded. "Thank you for helping me. I do not even know your name, but you have been kind." Marcus smiled faintly. "My name is Marcus, and you are welcome." That night, Marcus lay in his bed thinking, who was this man? Where did he come from? And what had happened to him? The next morning, Marcus woke up early. He made some simple breakfast and called the young man. When the young man came out of the room, Marcus noticed he looked better. The color had returned to his face, and he moved more easily. "Sit down. Let us eat." The young man sat at the small table. Marcus served him bread, eggs, and tea. They ate in silence for a while. Then Marcus spoke. "Do you remember anything now?" The young man shook his head. "No, still nothing." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "We need to call you something. We cannot just keep saying hey." The young man thought for a moment. Then he shrugged. "You can call me whatever you want." Marcus looked at him carefully. "How about Daniel?" The young man nodded slowly. "Daniel, all right, that works." From that day, the young man became known as Daniel. Marcus let him stay in the house while they tried to figure out who he really was. Marcus reported the situation to the local police, but no missing person reports matched Daniel's description. Days turned into weeks. Daniel slowly began helping Marcus around the mechanic's shop. At first, Marcus was not sure if Daniel knew anything about cars, but he was surprised. Daniel seemed to understand engines naturally. He could identify problems quickly and suggest solutions that actually worked. One afternoon, while they were working on an old truck, Marcus looked at Daniel with curiosity. "You are good at this. Have you worked with cars before?" Daniel wiped his hands on a cloth. "I do not know. But when I look at an engine, something just makes sense." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe you were a mechanic before you lost your memory." "Maybe," Daniel replied quietly. As time passed, Daniel became part of Marcus's daily life. They worked together during the day and ate together in the evening. Sometimes they sat outside and talked about simple things, life in the small town, the weather, the people who came to the shop. Daniel never complained. He worked hard and he was always grateful for everything Marcus did for him. But sometimes, late at night, Marcus would hear Daniel walking around the house. He knew Daniel was struggling, trying to remember, trying to find pieces of a life he could not recall. One evening, Marcus sat with Daniel on the small porch behind the house. The sky was clear and stars filled the night. "You have been here almost 2 months now," Marcus said. Daniel nodded. "I know, and I still remember nothing." Marcus looked at him. "Maybe your memory will come back, maybe it will not. But either way, you have a place here." Daniel turned to him. You have done so much for me already. I do not want to be a burden. Marcus shook his head. You are not a burden. You have been helping me more than you know. Daniel smiled faintly. Thank you, Marcus. But while Daniel was living quietly in Rivertown, far away in the city, a powerful family was searching desperately for him. In a tall building in the heart of the city, an elderly man sat behind a large desk. His name was Mr. Langford, and he was the chairman of Langford Industries, one of the largest companies in the country. Mr. Langford looked tired. His eyes were red and his face was filled with worry. Sitting across from him was a man in a dark suit. The man's name was Vincent, and he was the head of security for the Langford family. Any news? Mr. Langford asked quietly. Vincent shook his head. No, sir, we have searched everywhere. We have checked hospitals, police stations, and shelters in every nearby town, but there is still no sign of him. Mr. Langford closed his eyes and sighed deeply. It has been 2 months, Vincent. 2 months since my son disappeared. Vincent's voice was calm but firm. We will find him, sir. I promise. Mr. Langford opened his eyes again. What if something terrible happened to him? What if he is hurt somewhere and we cannot reach him? Vincent leaned forward slightly. Sir, we have people working day and night. If he is out there, we will find him. Mr. Langford nodded, but the worry in his heart did not go away. His son, Nathaniel Langford, had been missing for 2 months. Nathaniel was his only child. He was intelligent, kind, and being prepared to take over the family business one day. But one evening, Nathaniel had left the family estate to attend a business meeting in a nearby town. He never arrived. His car was found abandoned on a lonely road. There were signs of an accident, but Nathaniel himself was gone. Since that day, Mr. Langford had used every resource he had to search for his son. But it was as if Nathaniel had vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, back in Rivertown, life continued peacefully. Daniel had become well known in the small town. People liked him. He was polite, hardworking, and always willing to help. One afternoon, a woman named Clara came to the mechanic's shop. Clara was a teacher at the local school. She was kind and friendly, and she often brought her old car to Marcus for repairs. Hello, Marcus, she said with a smile. Hello, Clara. What brings you here today? My car is making a strange noise again, she replied. Marcus laughed lightly. That old car of yours always has something wrong. Clara smiled. I know, but it is all I have. Daniel stepped forward. Let me take a look. Clara looked at him. You must be Daniel. I have heard about you. Daniel nodded. Yes, nice to meet you. Clara smiled warmly. Nice to meet you, too. Daniel checked the car and quickly found the problem. It was a loose belt. He fixed it in a few minutes. Clara watched him work with admiration. You are very skilled, she said. Daniel smiled. Thank you. After Clara left, Marcus looked at Daniel with a small grin. She likes you. Daniel looked confused. What do you mean? Marcus laughed. I mean she was looking at you in a certain way. Daniel shook his head. I do not think so. She was just being friendly. Marcus shrugged. If you say so. But over the following weeks, Clara returned to the shop more often. Sometimes her car needed small repairs. Other times, she simply stopped by to say hello. Daniel began to notice, and slowly he started to enjoy her visits. One evening, Clara invited both Marcus and Daniel to a small community gathering at the town hall. It was a simple event with food, music, and dancing. Daniel hesitated at first, but Marcus encouraged him to go. You need to relax sometimes, Marcus said. You have been working too hard. So Daniel agreed. At the gathering, Daniel and Clara talked for a long time. They laughed together. They shared stories. And for the first time since Daniel had lost his memory, he felt something close to happiness. But that same evening, something unexpected happened. A man from a nearby town was visiting Rivertown for the gathering. His name was Richard, and he worked as a driver for a wealthy family in the city. During the event, Richard noticed Daniel. He stared at him for a long moment, then his eyes widened in shock. Richard quickly walked over to one of the town officials and whispered something urgently. The official looked at Daniel, then back at Richard. Are you sure? The official asked. Richard nodded firmly. I am sure. I have seen his picture many times. That is Nathaniel Langford. The official's face changed immediately. The missing heir? Yes, Richard replied. The Langford family has been searching for him for months. There is even a reward for information about him. The official hesitated, then he pulled out his phone. The next morning, Marcus was working quietly in his shop when 2 black cars pulled up outside. Men in dark suits stepped out. One of them walked toward Marcus. Are you Marcus? The man asked. Yes, who are you? My name is Vincent. I work for the Langford family. Marcus frowned. The Langford family? Vincent nodded. We have reason to believe you are sheltering someone we have been looking for, a young man named Nathaniel Langford. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. You mean Daniel? Vincent's expression remained serious. His real name is Nathaniel. He is the son of Mr. Langford, the chairman of Langford Industries. He has been missing for 2 months. Marcus stood frozen. He could not believe what he was hearing. At that moment, Daniel stepped out from the back of the shop. What is going on? Vincent turned immediately. His eyes locked on Daniel. "Mr. Langford," he said respectfully, "we have been searching for you." Daniel looked confused. "I do not know what you are talking about." Vincent stepped closer. "Sir, you are Nathaniel Langford. You disappeared 2 months ago after a car accident. Your father has been looking for you everywhere." Daniel shook his head. "No, my name is Daniel. I do not know any Nathaniel." Vincent pulled out a photograph and handed it to him. "This is you, sir. This picture was taken at your family estate 3 months ago." Daniel stared at the photograph. It showed a young man in an expensive suit standing beside an elderly man. The young man in the picture looked exactly like him. Daniel's hands began to shake. "I do not remember any of this." Vincent's voice softened. "You were in an accident, sir. You suffered a head injury. It caused you to lose your memory." Daniel looked at Marcus. Marcus stepped forward. "Is this true?" Vincent nodded. "Yes, and Mr. Langford has been desperate to find his son." Marcus felt his heart sink. He had grown close to Daniel over the past 2 months. The thought of losing him felt painful, but he also knew the truth had to be faced. Daniel looked at the photograph again. Then he looked at Vincent. "If what you are saying is true, then why do I not remember anything?" Vincent replied gently. "The doctors can explain that better than I can, but your father wants to see you. He has been heartbroken since you disappeared." Daniel stood in silence. His mind was racing. Everything he thought he knew about himself was suddenly being questioned. Finally, he spoke. "I need time to think." Vincent nodded. "Of course, but please, sir, your father is waiting. He needs to know you are safe." Marcus placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Maybe you should go. Maybe this is the answer you have been looking for." Daniel looked at Marcus. His eyes were filled with confusion and fear. "But what if I go and I still do not remember?" "Then at least you will know the truth," Marcus said gently. After a long pause, Daniel finally nodded. "All right, I will go." Vincent smiled with relief. "Thank you, sir. We will take you to your father right away." Daniel turned to Marcus. "Will you come with me?" Marcus hesitated. Then he nodded. "Yes, I will come." Within hours, Daniel and Marcus were sitting in one of the black cars, driving toward the city. The journey was quiet. Daniel stared out the window, watching the small town disappear behind them. When they arrived at the Langford estate, Daniel's eyes widened. The estate was enormous. There were tall gates, beautiful gardens, and a mansion that looked like something out of a dream. Vincent led them inside. The interior of the mansion was just as grand: marble floors, high ceilings, expensive paintings on the walls. Finally, they reached a large study. Vincent knocked gently on the door. "Come in," a voice said from inside. Vincent opened the door. Inside, an elderly man stood up from behind a desk. It was Mr. Langford. The moment Mr. Langford saw Daniel, his face changed completely. Tears filled his eyes. "Nathaniel," he whispered. He walked quickly toward Daniel and pulled him into a tight embrace. My son, you are alive." Daniel stood stiffly. He did not know how to respond. Mr. Langford pulled back and looked at his face. "I thought I had lost you forever." Daniel's voice was quiet. "I am sorry, sir, but I do not remember you." Mr. Langford's smile faded slightly, but he nodded. "I know. Vincent told me. It is all right. What matters is that you are home now." He turned to Marcus. "And you must be the man who saved my son." Marcus nodded. "My name is Marcus." Mr. Langford shook his hand firmly. "Thank you. You have no idea what you have done for me. I will make sure you are rewarded." Marcus shook his head. "I do not need a reward. I only did what anyone should do." Mr. Langford smiled warmly. "You are a good man." Over the following days, Daniel stayed at the Langford estate. Doctors examined him. They confirmed that his memory loss was caused by the head injury from the accident. They said his memory might return over time, but there was no guarantee. Mr. Langford was patient. He did not push Daniel to remember. Instead, he showed him photographs, told him stories, and slowly tried to help him reconnect with his past. Daniel learned that he had grown up in wealth. He had attended the best schools. He had been training to take over the family business, but none of it felt familiar. It all felt like someone else's life. One evening, Daniel sat alone in the large library of the estate. He was looking at old photo albums when Marcus walked in. "How are you holding up?" Marcus asked. Daniel sighed. "I do not know. Everyone here treats me like I am someone important, but I do not feel like that person." Marcus sat down beside him. "Maybe you do not have to be that person right now. Maybe you just need time." Daniel looked at him. "I miss Rivertown. I miss the shop. I miss the simplicity." Marcus smiled faintly. "Rivertown misses you too." Daniel closed the album. "Do you think Clara is upset that I left without saying goodbye?" Marcus nodded. "Probably. But she will understand once she knows the truth." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "I do not know if I belong here, Marcus." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "You belong wherever your heart feels at peace. But you also owe it to yourself to learn who you were before the accident. Maybe that will help you decide who you want to be now." Daniel nodded slowly. A few days later, Mr. Langford invited Daniel to visit the headquarters of Langford Industries. The building was massive. Employees greeted Daniel with respect as he walked through the halls. Mr. Langford showed him the different departments and explained how the company operated. "This will all be yours one day," Mr. Langford said proudly. Daniel looked around. It was impressive, but it also felt overwhelming. I do not know if I am ready for this. Mr. Langford smiled gently. You do not have to be ready today, just take your time. But that evening, something unexpected happened. Daniel was sitting in his room when he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. He closed his eyes and gripped the edge of the bed. Then, like flashes of light, images began appearing in his mind. A car, a dark road, bright headlights, the sound of metal crashing. Daniel gasped. The memories were coming back. Over the next few days, more memories returned. He remembered his childhood. He remembered his mother, who had passed away when he was young. He remembered his father's face. And he remembered the night of the accident. He had been driving to a meeting when another car hit him from the side. His car spun off the road and crashed. He had crawled out, injured and confused. Then he had walked for hours in the rain until he collapsed outside Marcus's shop. When Daniel finally told his father that his memory was returning, Mr. Langford was overjoyed. But Daniel also felt conflicted. Because even though he remembered his old life, he also remembered the peace he had felt in Rivertown. One evening, Daniel sat with his father in the study. "Father, I need to tell you something." Mr. Langford looked at him. "What is it, son?" Daniel took a deep breath. "I remember everything now, but I also realize something else." Mr. Langford waited. "I was not happy before the accident," Daniel said quietly. "I was living the life you wanted for me. But I was not living the life I wanted for myself." Mr. Langford's face became serious. "What are you saying?" Daniel looked at him. "I am saying I need to make my own choices now. I need to decide what kind of life I want to live." Mr. Langford was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I understand. And what do you want?" Daniel smiled faintly. "I want to go back to Rivertown." Mr. Langford looked surprised. "But why? That is just a small town. You have everything you need here." Daniel shook his head. "I have wealth here. I have power. But in Rivertown, I had something more important. I had peace. I had purpose. And I had people who cared about me for who I was, not for what I owned." Mr. Langford leaned back in his chair. He looked sad but also understanding. "You have changed, Nathaniel." Daniel nodded. "Yes, I have. And I think that change is a good thing." Mr. Langford sighed. "If that is truly what you want, I will not stop you. But promise me you will stay in touch." Daniel smiled. "I promise." A few days later, Daniel returned to Rivertown. When he arrived, Marcus was waiting for him at the mechanic's shop. "Welcome back," Marcus said with a grin. Daniel smiled. "It is good to be back." That evening, Daniel went to see Clara. When she opened the door and saw him, her eyes filled with tears. "You came back," she said. Daniel nodded. "I did, and I am not leaving again." Clara smiled and hugged him tightly. Over the following months, Daniel rebuilt his life in Rivertown. He worked with Marcus at the shop. He spent time with Clara, and slowly he found the happiness he had been searching for. 1 year later, Daniel and Clara got married in a small ceremony at the town hall. Mr. Langford attended, and he gave his blessing with a warm smile. As Daniel stood beside Clara, holding her hand, he realized something important. True wealth was not measured by money or power. It was measured by love, peace, and the people who stood by you no matter what. And in that small town, surrounded by people who truly cared, Daniel had found the richest life of all. My wonderful viewers, sometimes life takes us to unexpected places to teach us what truly matters. What do you think about this story? Do you think Daniel made the right choice? Share your thoughts in the comments section. I would really love to read from you. A more interesting story will be coming in a few days. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss it. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching.